Got some Crisscross Action. Absolutely loved this when I saw this video. In this Boxing Science Reacts video, we're going to be reacting to the training methods of Alexander Usyk. Now, we're not going to be analysing his unique dance moves, but looking at the techniques that he uses for his fantastic footwork and incredible engine.
Derek! Where are you, Derek?
I love this clip. It's the ultimate call-out clip. So yeah, he's running on the beach there. A lot of Usyk's conditioning drills are like low intensity running. Running on the beach is taking away impact forces around the lower body limbs. And he also does some underwater treadmill running. These are methods to take away like them impact forces of the lower body, which is crucial for him being a heavyweight, gaining mass in a short amount of time as he's moving up from cruiserweight to heavyweight. And also his age as well. He's in his mid-30s now, taking them impact forces away from the joints now. For heavyweights, I would look to do some more high-intensity protocols, some repeated sprints or max effort sprint work to improve their kind of tolerance and exposure to muscular acidosis, and also being able to control that as well. I normally do this on the air bike or different forms of modality because they can't really be exposed to them high forces and high speeds during running, because of their large body mass, exposing themselves to high impact forces. This increases the likelihood of injury, but also it limits their ability to expose themselves to them high intensities. I'll be able to push an athlete, a heavyweight athlete, much harder on the air bike than I would do on the curve. Now, this is what it looks like what Usyk's doing here. He's getting his like low intensity stimulus during running activity, but he actually changes up his high intensity conditioning using different modalities which are non-running based. Things like CrossFit, air bike, the skier, and the rowing machine as well. So he goes more high intensity on the non-running modalities, but then gets his low intensity work through running. And I think this is a fantastic way, and this is exactly how I'd train and condition a heavyweight boxer. Let's take a look at Usyk's non-running based conditioning methods. Now, the main one that is adopted quite recently when moving up to heavyweight is CrossFit. This is a much debated area, and something that I get asked quite a lot across boxing science is, what do I think to CrossFit for boxing? Is it beneficial or is it harmful? For Usyk, I think it's quite beneficial, but in most cases I don't. I'll go for the reason why I don't think it's that beneficial for boxing. We want to optimize adaptation, whatever we want it to do. When we're doing strength work, we're wanting to optimize the rate of force development in a maximum strength or in a strength speed or speed strength phase, and we need to limit the amount of reps, optimize that intensity to stimulate physiological adaptation. We have to do this in running. If we're looking for central, peripheral or muscle buffering adaptations, we're working to very specific speed and intensity to overload the athlete to be able to create physical adaptations. CrossFit is exactly what it says on the tin. It's a combination of different types of fitness. It challenges his strength, power, endurance, cardio within one session. So really, we're not optimizing anything. I'd say to separate the two. When you're doing your strength, concentrate on strength, whether that's working on maximum strength or working on power. In your conditioning, whatever it is on the 3 pillars, whether red zone adaptations or working on maximum sprints, optimize the adaptation there, keep it separate. One of the main limitations of CrossFit as well is performing stuff like cleans and deadlifts under a fatiguing scenario. So this can end up being quite dangerous for an athlete. If somebody is wanting to actually use CrossFit in their program, so what Usyk is doing here is adapting the CrossFit kind of methods and putting it into a more controlled setting. And it sounds like this is what Usyk is doing here. Now, the reason why I think it's quite beneficial for Usyk is because he's probably quite late to strength conditioning in terms of like improving his strength, his maximum strength and everything like that. He's probably started doing it mid-30s. The gains that he's going to get in maximum strength is probably limited. Is he going to become a power puncher at heavyweight? Probably not. He needs to optimize his fitness. What we just mentioned then about the low intensity running, he needs to be exposed to high intensities, high forces under fatigue. He's not going to get that through sprinting. 35, getting a lot heavier, probably picked up a lot of kind of lower body injuries. Using CrossFit, variations of CrossFit, can be actually quite beneficial as long as it's controlled in the right way. So a quick break to tell you more about who we are and what we do. We're Boxing Science, we're specialists in sports science in boxing, and we're based in the UK. We've worked with over 300 boxers, from amateurs, professionals, and even world champion athletes. We're specialists in strength conditioning, nutrition, psychology, physiology, and also movement training for boxing. If you're wanting to find out more about our methods, we've got a range of different content on our YouTube channel. So if you're not a subscriber yet, hit the subscribe button for more content. But also we've got our range of programs on the Boxing Science website, including the Train Like a Champion membership, where you can access the blueprint to elite performance for just £19.99 per month. If you're wanting more information, the link is in the description. Now let's kick on with the video. So let's take a look at some of his other non-running based activities, the air bike, rowing machine, and also the ski erg. The air bike is something that we use quite often at Boxing Science. We use it with heavyweight boxers all the time because we can really expose themselves to them real high force and high speed demands under fatigue. So we'll do some maximum effort sprints, 30 seconds on, 3 minutes off, and also repeated sprint training as well. So the air bike is probably my favorite non-running based activity. So the rowing machine, I get asked this quite a lot as well, a good conditioning tool for boxing. For me, you need to be proficient at the technique to be able to go at a decent level of intensity to target the adaptations they wanted to target. I get asked whether to do 30-second max out sprints on it. Probably can't do that because you can't reach the amount of speed and output that you need to create them demands, them peripheral adaptations. Muscle buffering, doing 2 minutes on, 3 minutes off, that can be quite good. It's probably favoured because you can increase muscular acidosis through this. And then central adaptations, so getting up to the red zone, I'd probably say not, because you need that kind of speed and repetition. As you can see with USYK here, it's really pushing and grinding through that movement. It's probably not getting up to the red zone on this. I might be wrong, but really you need kind of that speed and repetition, especially for boxing, especially how fit they are, to be able to get up into that red zone. So yeah, so like a rowing protocol would be something like 2 minutes on with 2 to 3 minutes recovery, anywhere between 6 and 8 repetitions. Now for the upper body ski erg, I think this is a good exercise, but for athletes that probably carrying a lower body injury or use as part of a circuit when you're working for upper body conditioning, lower body conditioning. At Boxing Science, we don't have access to ski erg, but we'll use something like battle ropes as part of a circuit for some upper body conditioning. I think the upper body ski erg is good. You can actually do 30-second max out sprints on this, but what I would say is when you're looking for them max force and speed outputs, you might want to be controlling that postural stability, that postural control, because you might end up coming into kyphosis whilst doing this and it not looking like a great exercise to do. Using it as part of a circuit can be quite beneficial, or using it with athletes that are carrying a lower limb injury. A big part of CrossFit is Olympic lifting, and it's great to see USYK using some Olympic lifting here. I think that Olympic lifting is beneficial for boxing. Boxers can be quite limited in their movement and mobility, which will affect their technique, which will limit the amount of load that's lifted. Keep improving your technique, but this takes a lot of time. So when you're doing 10, 12 week camps, you're going to take a big proportion of your camp to learn the technique. Now USYK boxing once a year or something like that, it looks like he's spending a lot of time in the S&C gym and working on his Olympic lifting technique. A lot of these videos here is actually working quite light, which kind of works towards my argument of probably limiting the strength and speed adaptations. Could he get stronger and faster doing like loaded jumps or doing some landmine variations? I think he could. Like with his snatch here, he's doing what? I think that's 50, 60 kilos. For somebody that's walking around at over 100 kilos, he could be spending his time a lot better. But look at his technique here. It's not really hitting his hips. He's not getting that triple hip extension. But it's great to see that he's really focusing on the technique now. Look at his coach here. He's teaching him the technique of the catch and of the front squat. He's looking to try and get them elbows higher. Now, this is something that a lot of boxers struggle with. Quite tight in the shoulders, tight in thoracic extension, so not able to get them elbows up. What he's doing here is a fantastic exercise to help improve the catch position and improve the front squat. He's just looking to try and get his elbows up nice and high there, but you can see there, because he's not getting that range, big kind of strain onto his wrist. So he's practicing the front squat here. You can see that he's struggling with them elbows, but it's great that he's got a coach there that's teaching him that technique and trying to work on it. It is a little bit light. The weight of the bar could help his elbows pop up a little bit more, but this will put more strain on the wrist, and this is the reason why we work away from actually doing the catch of the clean or performing front squats. You know, when we're doing something like kind of front base on squats, we'll either do goblet squats or we'll do landmine squats as well. So with this limiting factor of the catch position during the clean and getting it into front squat position, at Boxing Science we use clean pulls as a variation because we can overload the clean action and get the benefits of Olympic lifting using the regression. Now this is something that USYK's actually using here, anywhere between 100 and 110 kilos on the bar, can't quite tell. It depends kind of what the colour system that they have in the gym. A lot more load on the bar than you would do in a full clean. It's not exposing himself to them high forces going through the elbow and wrist joints, catching it in the front squat position, and is getting them strength speed adaptations. It's getting really good hip extension there that he didn't get on the snatch on the video before, and he's getting a good shrug there. This is really beneficial exercise to use. So if you're looking to do a clean pull, put that into your program, get a strength conditioning coach to take you through this technique because it is a difficult technique. Don't just think that you can just walk up to the bar and try and do this. Usyk's probably had this coach working with him for a long time now. Now he's got push jerk, pushing 50 kilos above his head there, and he's getting that push and drive, he's getting that counter movement action, full hip extension, high amounts of rate force development there, transfer to the punch. It's got a relaxation phase, and then it's got the snap at the end of the punch. And this is very, very transferable to boxing, because we know with a lot of studies that look at like the kinetic chain sequencing and the relaxation when delivering a punch. So it's a double peak activation, you accelerate, you relax, and then you snap at the end range of the punch. Now this is something that Olympic lifting can offer you, but can definitely in that push press action. Now what I would say with this is that it is quite limited on the amount of load that it can lift overhead, just through tightness of the shoulders, flaring of the rib cage, and you can see that it's a big amounts of strain on his wrist and his elbows there. We use like push jerks, quite a lot of boxing science, or split jerks, but we use it on the landmine single arm to look at unilateral differences and work a little bit lighter in speed strength phases. We also look to overload that movement by using it on a Viking press, and we can get significant loads on there, so we can increase strength and speed adaptations. We also can reduce the likelihood of injury. Usyk has probably got the best footwork in the heavyweight division. The light on his feet is fast and is extremely reactive. So looking at Usyk, you'd think that he does a lot of plyometrics. With heavyweight boxers, plyometrics can be quite problematic because they're a lot heavier. This can limit and increase the ground contact time. So that increasing ground contact time will limit the physical adaptation. So these footwork drills, it looks like they're actually doing this under a time constraint and doing it high volume. It says to me that this is part of his actual conditioning routine instead of like kind of doing it speed based. And I'm a fan of this. Like I said, we're not getting them high intensity adaptations from his running because he's reducing their running loads. Creating that speed and intent under conditioning stimulus can increase spikes in heart rate, can increase a spike in muscular acidosis, so you're getting some muscle buffering, capacity working there as well, but also improving lower body endurance, concentration, timing under fatigue as well. Now this is something that we actually use as part of our circuits. We'll do like RLE shuffles, but instead of just doing the two lengths, so one length either way, we actually do this under time constraint, whether that's 15 or 20 seconds, and give them a target as well. And you can see that our athletes find this quite difficult to do, increases the heart rate, and also blood lactate levels as well in this. Okay, so we've got some crisscross action. Absolutely loved this when I saw this video. Something that we've been using for years at Boxing Science. Look, we're talking about them low intensity plyometrics there, but creating some sort of speed demand, making this more advanced and increasing the speed and the complexity of the movement is a fantastic way to improve reactive strength. We do crisscross jumps. When we do this on the course, we get a few laughs. Everybody like kind of engages with it. This is a fantastic exercise to use with heavier athletes. It's good to use with lighter athletes as well, but also great to use with younger athletes. If you're working in a large group and you're wanting to start incorporating some plyometric work, it's quite difficult to overload them in different ways in terms of like height and dealing with them high eccentric forces, keeping it lower intensity, but increasing the speed and complexity. This will help improve their reactive strength in a safer way, but it's also a fun way to do as well. So yeah, it's great to see Usyk do this. He also pairs this up, doing 10 seconds on, 10 seconds off. So do a circuit of the crisscrossers, 10 seconds rest, and then he'll do 10 seconds of non-stop punching. This is something that we mentioned in the New Wave video. Shadow boxing as a tool to increase the intensity of the punch output. You know, he's not really working on his technique here. He's just trying to throw as many punches in a short amount of time. This is a fantastic way to increase that capacity for your punch output in a safer and a more effective way than you would do on the bags or on the pads as well. It does a lot of dumbbell and kettlebell work. It performs kettlebell snatches, dumbbell snatches here. I'd say that the kettlebell snatch is a fantastic exercise to use as part of a speed phase, potentially looking at it being a warm-up, an extended warm-up to get our athletes fired up. Now, I wouldn't use it as a main strength exercise. The reason why is because you're not looking at them kind of high force demands going through the lower body. It's almost like it's dependent on technique and that overhead range and stability. So like Usyk here again is lifting quite light. It's probably doing this part of his CrossFit workout. I'd say for kettlebell work, kettlebell clean is a good exercise to use, but making sure that you're doing this heavy enough to be able to promote adaptations is important. Like if you're wanting to use this, it's still a great exercise to use, but probably use it as an extended warm-up rather than a key exercise. Same really applies with these kettlebell complexes here, but I do like it. If you're limited on equipment, wanting some kind of strength adaptations or full body workout, kettlebell complexes are really good. So he's going from a swing into a snatch, overhead press, and then he's going into that lunge, challenging his strength, his speed, his stability there. When you've got limited equipment, using it as an assistance exercise rather than a key exercise to improve strength and speed. So he's got a goblet Cossack squat. Fantastic mobility here. Great exercise to use. Lateral lunges are a big part of the boxing science program for our single leg exercises, getting out of that sagittal plane, opening up the hips. Boxers are quite tight in their adductors and potentially weaker in their glute med. And this is exactly what it's working on. It's working on the adductor flexibility, looking to try and overload that bent leg, working the glute and the glute med. So this can transfer into better lateral movement. Going straight into goblet Cossack squat, it'd be quite difficult. Like I said, I was really impressed with his mobility there. Probably starting off with a lateral lunge and press using the weight plate, because what boxers will struggle with is that hip mobility and adductor mobility as well. What a lot of boxers will tend to do is tend to lean forward whilst performing this exercise. You can see that USYK's really popped up, got great postural control. A lot of boxers will find that quite difficult to start off with. So instead of holding the weight here, pressing the weight out, create that counterbalance so an athlete can get into the proper posture whilst performing the lateral lunge. Then you can progress this by doing a kettlebell lateral lunge, opposite arm, opposite leg. This is probably a better exercise to use than the goblet version. Boxers will tend to lean forward, pop the weight there, close to the chest. Athlete will look to kind of lean forward. So doing opposite arm, opposite leg is a fantastic way. Just keep that shoulder blade retracted, really start opening up your hips and working on developing that lateral movement. So we've got some landmine punches, which I always like to see. Fantastic technique as well. You can see that it's getting that whip and drive from the lower body. Probably doing too many reps here. Now, I'm not going to really react to that. It's got good technique here, quite a basic exercise to react to. Something that I've seen that I'm going to react to is this exercise here. You can't really get a full shot of it. So I'm actually going to perform it myself to provide a demonstration. Now, I can see some of the benefits here. You are improving that rotational range and probably loading the rear leg. But I'd say that you're working away from the adaptation that we're wanting to get from landmine punches. First initial acceleration, drive into the floor, that's really crucial to improving punch power. What we've actually seen in our data, this is not published data by the way, so it's not peer reviewed, but something that we've analysed with the GymAware, the acceleration, the time to peak acceleration, peak velocity. What we're seeing is that that peak velocity occurs from this movement here. Just the rotation of the shoulders probably occurs when the hand is just leaving the shoulders. That initial movement of the landmine, having it close to your chin, dropping down with pushing through the floor, which there is research on, that the first initial propulsion into floor is a massive contributor into punch power. Driving through this part here, that's the most important bit to strengthen up. So this is why we prefer banded variations, doing heavy landmine punch throws where we're overloading that part of the movement there. So what we're doing when we're going to the floor in that pre-rotation there, losing that demand to really drive from the floor, from this position, which we know the transfers to a powerful punch, but we're also increasing the momentum when we get to this part here, so we're not overloading this rotation of the hips and torso and this initial movement here. Pulling it, we're creating the momentum. It's easier for us to actually rotate through that movement. So moving away from that exercise. So what I would say, if you're looking to improve your rotational power and looking for that kinetic chain sequencing, which I can see some benefits for it, I'll be working more towards landmine punch catch and throw, where you're dipping down and driving through, but definitely look to do the landmine punch with pre-rotation, because we're really overloading that part of the movement. So I'd say that they're more beneficial and more effective exercises than this one where you're pulling it from the floor and then driving up. So that's the end of this episode of Boxing Science Reacts to Alexander Usyk's training techniques. Now, I'm a massive fan of Usyk. I've been for many years. His skill, his fitness, lack of fear, and it's been a fantastic experience to look in detail of his training techniques. Something I'm going to really take from this, a lot of the training techniques is something that I wouldn't advise a lot of our athletes to do, but I can see that there's strong justifications for Usyk to do it and the benefits that he's gaining from it. And this is the whole point of the Boxing Science Reacts series, is looking at the way that these superstars train and these really successful athletes train, analyze it in a way and break it down to think, right, I can use this part of the training and I can get the same adaptation by making these adjustments and using a different variation. There's many different ways to train. You've just got to make sure that you've got strong justification for that training method that you're using and making sure that you're applying that in a way where it's structured, it's planned out, really targeting them physical adaptations. Thank you very much for watching another episode of Boxing Science Reacts. Hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future content. Thank you very much. Hopefully see you on the next episode of Boxing Science Reacts.